Right now we've got a fairly nice pausing system in our Godot game, except one thing is that it still shows my crosshair while I'm paused. Another thing is that I can't pause when I'm inside my car, which is not too bad because at the moment when I hit escape I just leave the car. And the third thing, which is the slightly harder one to fix, is that I'd like to be able to unpause by hitting escape again rather than having to hit the resume button. And there's a slight problem with that at the moment because my code checking to see if I've hit escape or not is in my player, and when I'm paused I can't run any of the code in my player because the player is paused. So I'm going to need to move the code for pausing and resuming my game into my game state script, which is what we're going to do now. First I'll grab the code from my player script that pauses the game, this code here when I press escape, and I'll copy that, and then I'm going to delete the entire escape section from my player script. I'm going to go to the game state script, and we're going to add two new functions. One is going to be pause, where I'll paste that code that I got from my player script, just unindent it a little bit with a shift tab. And the other one is going to be resume, where actually I can paste that code again, and just like I did in my pause menu script, and just change this to captured, this to hide, and this to false. That will resume my game. Then I'll use the built-in function _input, _input, which I can auto-complete with tab, to check if I've pressed the escape key, just like I was doing in my player script, by writing if event is action pressed UI cancel this time, because it's a bit shorter than how I wrote it in the player script, but I've realized that the UI cancel action from our input map has already been mapped to escape, so that'll save us a bit of typing. Then if I've pressed escape, I will check whether or not the game is currently paused by doing getTree.paused. And if it's already paused, that means I'll run the resume function. And if it's not paused, so in my else statement, then that means pressing escape is when I'll run my pause function. Now we should be able to press escape to toggle between pause and resumed at any time during our game, but we actually don't want to be able to do that if we're in the main menu scene or in the end game scene. So I'm actually going to add to this if statement and also check that the current level is not equal to 0 and it's not equal to 3, so that this isn't happening in the main menu or in the end game. And I can do a nice little clever way of checking that it's neither of those numbers by checking that current level is not in this list of numbers. So it's not 0 and it's not, and this is where I could write a 3, but instead I'm going to calculate the length of my levels list minus 1. So that way if I add a whole bunch of extra levels into my list of levels, this will always be the very bottom one, the very last one, because it's that length minus 1. So provided that my current level is neither of those two numbers, then the escape button will work nicely to either pause or resume my game. But it actually won't work just yet because we need to set our game state script to be something that can run even when the game is paused, just like we did with the pause menu node. And with pause menu we were able to do that because we could go into the inspector and change its process mode, but GameState doesn't have a process mode because it doesn't have any nodes attached to it. This is an auto load script. So we can set the same thing, but we have to do it in the ready function when the script first loads. So I'm going to add back in our _ready function, and I'm going to set the process mode of my game state script to be node.process mode always, rather than just when paused, because I also want this script to run. So now my game state script is going to run when the game is paused and when it's not paused. Now that all the code for pausing and unpausing is handled from our game state script, I should be able to go to the car script and change what key we use to exit the car from escape just to anything else. I'm going to choose E because that's what we use to enter the car, just so that that doesn't clash with our attempts to pause the game in the game state script. And I can also go to my pause menu script, and instead of running this on resume button pressed function everywhere, I can use my game state resume function. Game state dot resume every time I want to resume the game. Not that I need to change these necessarily because they were still working exactly the same way, but given that I have a function that does exactly what we want for resuming the game, I may as well take advantage of it. Now we should be able to play the game and see that escape does nothing on the main menu screen, and once we start the game, escape both pauses and unpauses the game. And I would say it should even work when we're in the car, but I've discovered that when we hit E now, we enter and then immediately exit the car, which is a bit of silliness. So we need to fix that by consuming the E key when we enter the car with our player character, which we can do by going to the player script, and when we press E, if we want to be able to use that same key later in the vehicle, we need to write get viewport dot set input as handled, and that means that the car script won't then also use that same E key. It will wait for a different time when we've pressed the E key to let us leave the car. So now I should be able to go into my car using the E key, and then leave the car using the E key, and if I'm in the car I should be able to pause with escape, just like I can when I'm not in the car. The final thing that I want to fix up is to remove that crosshair when I'm in pause mode. This is a little bit tricky because we've got our crosshair on our player, and we want access to it from our game state script, which doesn't actually have access to the player. In fact, the game state lives when many players might come and go, and they've all got different crosshairs on them. So a good way to reach this crosshair from the game state script is to give the crosshair a group. I'll click on crosshair, I'll go to groups, and I'll just add a group to it called crosshair. And then in my game state script I can access anything in that group. So when I pause the game, I'll add for every node in get tree dot get nodes in group crosshair, and this will run a loop for every single thing in that crosshair group, which is only one thing, and we can write node dot hide if we're pausing the game, and then copy that entire block into resume, get all of the nodes in the crosshair group, and if we're resuming the game we can do node dot show. The nice thing about having this in a loop is if there happens to be nothing in that group at the moment, then this loop will run 0 times and it won't just freeze out because it can't find the things in that group. That should be all we need to do to hide and show any number of crosshairs in the game. Now I can click New Game, and every time I pause, the crosshair is gone. I can pause anytime I like, I can pause even if I'm in the car, so that's the end of this video, and I think we're quite happy with that result. Except for one more thing I discovered during testing, which is that I can't actually click on any of the buttons in the pause menu when I'm in my car, because the vehicle HUD is on top of this global canvas layer at the moment. It's an easy fix. I just click on the global canvas layer and I change it from layer 1 to layer 2, and then instead of appearing underneath the vehicle HUD, it will appear above it, and I'll actually be able to click those buttons in the menu, which I didn't try to do when I was recording the video. So that fixes that problem, and now we'll actually be able to pause our game from the car, and we'll be able to click all of these buttons to unpause the game again. That's the end for real.